So you will not kill an animal to eat it, but you will slaughter all manner of plant life and eat it. So you're okay with that, but not eating the animals. You have judged that your side of the tree of life is more important than this other side of the tree of life. Have you stopped and thought about what a tree is?
Hey, what is up, guys? So Neil deGrasse Tyson recently dropped a new video titled something along the lines of species bias explained or something like that. And in the video, he says some things that I just have some problems with, and things that I think if the wrong person hears will just have a lot of really bad ideas in their head, trying to justify not being a vegan and continuing to pay for animals to be, tortured and exploited for human benefit. He doesn't necessarily say that plants feel pain, but he's kind of erring on the side of that and the idea that we should be valuing all life. And I could just so easily see somebody who views Neil deGrasse Tyson as like an intellectual role model hear this and be like, that makes so much sense. One way or another, we have to kill life, whether it's, microscopic bacteria or plants or animals. And, it's just amazing how far life has come from an evolutionary perspective and how much life has gone through for me to get to this point where I have the luxury of life. You'll understand what I mean as we get into the video. So let's get right into it.
I just want to just share some points of view. So, do you remember all of the concerns people had about tuna being caught by nets?
Right.
And the issue wasn't that tuna were being caught by nets. It was that the nets were trapping
hurting dolphins.
Dolphins.
Right. Because dolphins aren't delicious. And,
no.
And tuna is.
No, that wasn't. Okay, so the argument was in the net, the tuna can breathe, but the dolphin can't.
Right.
Because a dolphin is an air breather and it doesn't breathe in the water. Right. So you kill the dolphins if the net doesn't come up quickly enough.
Yeah, you drown them.
Okay, and basically they drown. The fact that we're protecting the dolphins but eating the tuna, I remember thinking to myself, why doesn't anybody care about the tuna? Right? It's also a big fish. All right, it had a life in the ocean. And so I realized that we have species bias among us.
Yeah, I'm going to go with...
We have species bias. We're saying...
I don't want to admit what you're saying is true.
We don't want to admit it.
I don't want to admit it, but...
We don't like to admit it.
Yeah,
but it's there. I just want to reveal this in case people hadn't thought it through.
So the video is off to a good start. Neil is raising the question of why do people care about the dolphins that are affected by nets, but not the actual tuna that are going to be killed? And he proposes that the reason is because of species bias or, maybe speciesism, something along those lines. Now, if we want to get technical here, somebody could technically value, the dolphins over the tuna with some sort of assumption that the dolphins have a higher capacity for sentience or, have bigger brains, which they're going to cover later in this video. But I want to say that, at this point, I think Neil's off to a good start. He's recognizing that people are caring about dolphins while participating in a process which involves so much tuna dying. So, I think it's cool that at this point in the video, he's raising the topic of speciesism, but just wait.
All right. So we're saying we value the dolphin over no, we're not talking about vegetarians here who would eat neither, but for those who would eat the tuna and specifically not eat the dolphin because it's a mammal. So what you're saying is that in the tree of life, which has fungus and bacteria and plants and animals, you have taken this slender branch in that tree of life called mammals, which is a offshoot from vertebrates, okay? Mm-hmm. So both dolphins and tuna are vertebrates, but dolphins are a spin-off of that called mammals, and they lactate, they give live birth, as do we. So we are saying you are close enough to us that we value your life above other life on this tree of life. And some people said, no, it's not that they're mammals, it's that they have big brains. Their brain is larger than us.
Okay, so
now we're saying We value them because they have big brains. Okay. All right. Whatever rules you want to invoke, I just want to make sure people fully understand that every living thing on Earth is as far away from an evolutionary place from the very first single-celled life as is all other life on Earth. Okay? So you're saying, oh, the brain is important for survival. Oak trees are still alive today, and they don't have any brains. Okay? And they're doing just fine.
Okay, so it depends, like I said before, what a person is thinking in their head when they decipher between a tuna fish and a dolphin and thinking that one is more valuable than the other. And Neil is making the point here that even if the reason you care about the dolphin over the tuna fish is because dolphins have bigger brains and, you know, maybe a higher capacity for sentience, that all of us are pretty far away from the single cell organism which evolution has started from. And he even goes as far as to mention an oak tree. And this is where I start to get a feeling that he's, you know, about to say something along the lines of plants feel pain, but that isn't actually where he's going. He's trying to, you know, make the point that all things are alive and that, you know, we should probably value all things that are alive. Now, if you talk to a vegan who is reasonable will tell you that the reason we don't value plants in the same way that we value animals that are sentient is because plants aren't sentient. And it depends on what your axioms are for morality and, you know, what you actually value. But the average person, whether they know it or not, values increasing well-being in the universe. And that's why vegans care about preserving well-being and preserving animals that can experience well-being. That's why vegans aren't out here advocating for plant rights. And if you're a person who values things based off of the amount of well-being that could be generated by those things, you'll also understand that one of the reasons we value the environment, and probably the main reason, is because of its effect on the well-being of conscious creatures. If we just had the earth and trees and, you know, microscopic bacteria, but no actual biological life which is sentient, I mean, I personally don't see a reason why we would care for the earth. Unless you want to make an argument that, you know, maybe we should preserve it in an effort to allow sentient life to possibly evolve. But let's imagine that we knew that there was no chance of sentient life occurring and we just had a planet of just plants and bacteria, but no actual sentient life, hence no potential for well-being. I mean, I personally would not care about preserving that environment because I just generally care about increasing well-being. So you'll notice throughout the rest of this video, Neil deGrasse Tyson is trying to propose, you know, that everything has a sort of value. And I can agree that, you know, things have their value, like trees have their value in that they can help, you know, the well-being of conscious creatures. They produce oxygen, which we breathe in. I understand these things, and that's, to me, like, again, how I view value. Like, if I think something has value, I'm looking at it in terms of how it affects and, you know, helps conscious creatures or sentient beings. I don't think that, you know, like microscopic bacteria has value just because it's alive. I don't think that, you know, plants have value just because they're alive. I, and, you know, most vegans care about the rights of animals because they're sentient.
So here's my point. So we go through this tree of life and cherry pick it for things we like for whatever reasons we invoke at the time. And we could be influential on others and gather groups of people to feel the same way about that. So you will not kill an animal to eat it, but you will slaughter all manner of plant life and eat it. So you're okay with that, but not eating the animals. You have judged that your side of the tree of life is more important than this other side of the tree of life.
So here we have Neil pointing out that, you know, if you're a vegan and you decide to not eat animals, you're still harming plants and eating plants. And this is true. And then he makes the point that, you know, you're kind of deciding like what is more valuable. And this is also, in a sense, true. You know, people have their moral axioms and they have their things that they think are valuable. I personally don't care about life per se. I care about sentient life. And the majority of vegans also care about sentient life because we care about increasing well-being, like I said before. So this idea that, you know, you're also harming life, it's like, yeah, we agree and we know that we're doing this, but there's a difference of values here. And I wouldn't say that, you know, because plants are alive, I therefore get to go and kill dogs and eat them, and it's all kind of the same thing. And that's of course according to my values, but I would wonder if, Neil even would view, the killing of a dog to be equal to killing plants for food. And if he just thinks that, all of this is kind of like morally the same because everything is alive and everything has their sort of role in the life cycle and in nature. I'm wondering if really that's what he's getting at. And this is one of the main reasons I find this video problematic, is because a lot of people, like I said before, that look up to him are going to hear him say things like this and be like, huh, and have this big appeal to futility fallacy go off in their head where they're saying like, oh, I guess you kind of have to kill things to survive. Therefore, I'm going to make zero effort in terms of trying to reduce the amount of cruelty that I support on this planet with my dietary choices on a daily basis. And this is a problem for me. People are all the time looking for reasons to justify eating animals. And, it's a very easy thing to try to want to justify because, when you're not a vegan, you're very emotionally attached to these foods. And so if someone sees an intellectual like Neil deGrasse Tyson just saying, yeah, you know what? All of this is just alive and we have to kill things to survive. There's going to be a ton of people just saying like, oh, we have to kill to survive. So, and Neil deGrasse Tyson is so smart and he said all life has to kill all life to sustain itself. And, therefore, why would I make any effort to just stop my support of billions and trillions of sentient beings being tortured and murdered and exploited by humans every year?
And there's another very important point I want to make. Even sticking with the animal side of the tree of life, because we're animals and we're even so, we prefer the fuzzy, cuddly ones. All right, we prefer, why is it that the squirrel is cute, but the opossum is nasty? All right, is it because the opossum doesn't have hair on its tail?
Yes.
And it's not bushy and it doesn't look at you? It's ugly. All right, so we are value judging animals on their beauty for what we want to protect and what we don't.
I like this part where Neil points out, that we think squirrels are cute and then think that possums are like uglier, and that some people, not all of us, but some people do value judge things based on how cute they are. A lot of people will do this about dogs and cats and think that dogs and cats are, not appropriate to consume and kill for food. But when it comes to cows, pigs, and chickens, it's totally fine because they're not as cute as dogs and cats. And yeah, this is obviously a problem. Like, we don't want to live in a world where people are literally determining your value of life based on how you look. Kind of sounds a little bit similar to racism, right?
There are things that most of us would just as soon not have, like lethal viruses, like ticks, like mosquitoes, like bacteria, dysentery. These are life forms that we share the earth with. Where is the community of people that's saying, save the ticks, all right? Somehow we're all okay exterminating them, killing them, getting them out of because they carry disease, or not only ticks, who are the jumpers?
Fleas.
The fleas, okay? The fleas, by all account, carry the bubonic plague. If the world never had another flea, you probably wouldn't miss it. But that meant you would be exterminating a branch of the tree of life, a species in the tree of life, because it's not convenient for you.
Yeah, so there's particular parts of the tree of life that we choose to exterminate or eradicate because they cause suffering. He actually brought up bacteria, and I made a lot of videos where I kind of joke about how people that give shit to vegans about harming plants and our consumption of plants because plants are alive should also go ahead and become microscopic bacteria activists because bacteria is also alive.
We basically eradicated smallpox, right? Well, what about the smallpox microbes, all right? How do they feel about this?
So now Neil is really taking this as far as you possibly can go. He's bringing up smallpox microbes, pondering, what does smallpox think about the fact that we've implemented measures to eradicate smallpox from harming human beings? This is the kind of land of absurdity you land in when you try to be a person who just values life. But we don't value just life. We value well-being. That's why we try to eradicate forms of life which reduce well-being. And, we'll also try to eradicate forms of sentient life that reduce well-being. Like if there's a person who's a serial killer or someone who's just an awful person who has a high potential to increase the suffering in the world, we might kill them. So it all comes back to increasing well-being and reducing suffering, at least when it comes to vegans And I would say most people as well, whether they realize it or not. When you realize that well-being is really at the forefront of most people's moral perspectives, you realize that, yeah, we should not be valuing all life. If we valued all life and just, wanted all life to prosper and manifest in its own way, we would be risking viruses being spread. Imagine if we had like COVID rights, because we need to respect all life.
So I'm not landed anywhere. I just think about all of life and all the struggles that life had to go through to get to where it is today in the tree of life, 4.5 billion years after life began.
So Neil is now making the point that he doesn't have a specific position as to what matters more than, the next thing. He's just trying to make the point that all life kind of suffers in some way for other life, and that all life should, in some sense, be valued. This is the main part of the video that I deem problematic. If people see this, they're gonna think, okay, well, all life in some sense has to, fail at the cost of another life's success, and therefore, why should I care about doing anything or reducing my harm towards anything? And this is obviously very problematic. You're gonna have a bunch of people now just content and thinking it's totally okay to just, maximize the amount of suffering you cause, because, in life over here has to take life from this life over here, and, you just can't live without suffering. So who cares about anything? All right, guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. The main point of this video is just to express that we should be valuing well-being, not just life. Because if we just value life and let all life kind of prosper on its own, we have a world where viruses and things that reduce well-being get to proliferate and exist. And, we have more suffering as a result. And that's obviously not a good thing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Dude, even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe sense of irony here. Who is your audience? Nobody gets these dumb jokes. Dude, even vegans don't get your weird,